You are now in tune with the community on 318 Latino. Meet interesting people who make our community great. Hear their stories, check out their projects.
Gracias.
Gracias. Gracias.
Hello, 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 Shreveport, Louisiana, Bossier, Houghton, Mansfield, and everywhere that listens online. Thank you so much for being here with us today again. My name is Brian Garcia, your friendly Mexican, your friendly neighborhood Mexican, and I'm happy to be here with you again on 318 Latino. Now, I want to remind you guys, English is not my first language, but I'm going to try my best to conduct this interview because here with us today we have Miss Pat Gilley. Is that how we pronounce it?
That's it. That's correct.
Miss Pat Gilley, thank you so much for being here with us today. It is my understanding that you are running for the Caddo District Attorney position.
That's correct.
And we want to learn a lot more about you, why you're running, who you are, what got you into politics. So thank you again for being here with us today, Miss Pat.
It's my pleasure, and I thank you so much for inviting me. I am a 72-year-old grandma. I moved here 34 years ago with my husband and 2 children when he was assigned to Barksdale Air Force Base. He was a lieutenant colonel and a JAG, Judge Advocate General at that time. At that point, we decided that he was going to retire at the end of that tour at 20 years. And we had another child since then. So we've lived here for 34 years and basically have raised our children here. I do have a website that has a very lengthy, much more lengthy biography about where I was born, Illinois, places that I've lived, New York, Alaska, Massachusetts. And so that's all in there if you want to know more. But the reason I'm here is because when we arrived here in 1986, we decided to open our own law office when Harold retired. And that's what we did. So for the last 30 plus years, we have been what we refer to as street lawyers. Not lawyers that are up at the top of the big tall bank buildings. We're lawyers on the second floor of a building, and people just can come in off the street. They can call for an appointment, and for all of these years we have had a policy of a 30-minute free consultation. Anyone has a legal problem, that's part of our offering. We will talk to you for free. Usually it was more than 30, but we didn't care. Right. So I think that in 30 years' time, that is one of the things that has really made me such a good candidate for this job, because I have learned in those 30 years the problems that people have in this community. Civil problems, family problems, criminal problems. We have done it all. And so it really has civil rights, all kinds of problems. So we prided ourselves in that, that we were there for everybody. But when things get tough, we were both appointed to represent federal criminal defendants who had insufficient funds. And during the representation of one of those individuals, the local trial court, federal trial court, I did not think did properly. They gave my client 5 years instead of 2.5 years. I told the judge that's not right. He disagreed. I went to the appellate court in New Orleans, and when they couldn't agree, they had a 10-7 verdict, which I lost. So I said, there's only one more thing to do. It's go to the United States Supreme Court. So I did. So that was an impossible thing. They told me, don't do it. That's foolish. They have 10,000 applicants a year, and they pick 75. So why do you think you will be the one? And I said, well, whether I'm the one or not, I have to try. So I tried, I went, I argued, and I won. So I have proven that I know how to solve problems. I've proven that I know the people of this community. I have the heart for helping people. So that's how it came to be. I learned also a year ago, I said, I don't know anybody that's going to run against the incumbent DA. Somebody needs to run against him because it is not working well for the people in this community.
And let me ask you, what exactly is going on with the current administration of the DA? Why does it need to be changed?
Well, anybody that's been in this criminal justice system in any way, either as an attorney, as a prosecutor, as a defendant, as a victim, as witnesses, will agree with me almost unanimously that there's a problem. It doesn't work well. It's not an equal playing and level playing field. There are favorites over there. The people who support the incumbent spend lots and lots of money to keep him in place. This is the 40th year he's been a servant of the people. He's never been on his own, having to worry about keeping an office. People pay him to go, and then we pay him as citizens. But you can never find him. He is a figurehead district attorney. That's been the big complaint. I was trying to get him as a lawyer to talk to him about some cases that I thought his assistants were not doing what the right thing was. And I would try and never get him. And that was a common complaint of all of us. The citizens of the Caddo Parish here also have various times tried to get him, never see him. The only time we see him is when it's a photo op. And so I am not going to be a figurehead attorney, district attorney. I will be an action figure. I'm the kind of person that wants to get out and be among the people. And I don't think any district attorney can solve the problems that are here now with all of the high incarceration levels. Last year when the sheriff got reelected, at his campaign, his celebration party, they said, well, are you going to sleep better now? And he said, well, I don't think so. I've got over 800 people out there on my employees with guns out there, and I've got a $75 million budget, and I've got 1,000 people waiting for trial over in my jail. That's wrong. We don't need to have 1,000 people in the jail waiting for trial. If everybody was doing what they were supposed to do, if they would follow some of the rules that I have in my 21 plan platform, we wouldn't have those problems. So
21 steps.
Yeah, we have 21 principles for the 21st century prosecutors. It's not something I dreamed up. I certainly will not take credit for coming up with all those, but this is widespread across our country. During the quarantine period for many months, I took time to read and research and see what other cities were doing, and it's amazing. There are all kinds of fabulous ideas.
So can you tell me some of those as to what are some of those principles and how would you implement them in order to change?
Absolutely. There are the first 10 principles have to do with kind of a policy situations. For example, I don't believe that we should spend 60 to 80% of courtroom time prosecuting misdemeanors. And across the country, that's the average. We don't need to have all of the DA's dollars and resources spent on that. So I would not be prosecuting the bulk of misdemeanors. We would find a diversion program. We would find some other system that would not make criminals of these people, because whether it's littering or whatever it might be, trafficking, it goes on your record. And that goes on it forever, and it stops people from progressing as they would normally do. And sadly, it's predominantly the people of color, especially the black people, who suffer that stigma. Because you get a conviction for any little thing, it's going to be on there, and then you've got to explain it. So I wouldn't be prosecuting all of these. You get caught with drug paraphernalia, or you're smoking some pot, or you sold a dime bag of something. I'm not going to use the people's money to prosecute that kind of stuff. We're going to find different programs to get those people in so that we can get them the help they need. We're also, under my tour of duty there, would not criminalize people with mental health problems. We don't need to go out with police and go out with guns blazing for people who have mental health problems. That's not a criminal thing. That's
what do you consider
sickness.
mental health problems? Because that's a broad area.
Well, it's people like the one in Philadelphia that the mother called. My son is out here in the streets. He's got a knife. We need some medical help. We need somebody. So the police ran in, and the next thing you know, he's shot with a bunch of bullets, dead on the street. That's not the kind of thing police belong in answering. There's a system called Cahoots. out in the West Pacific, Northwest part of our country that has a program where the 911 calls are filtered for situations like that. They do not send warrior cops out to that kind of a situation. They call people who are specially trained to do help with people who have a mental disturbance of some kind or another, to de-escalate the problem. And that's the kind of thing that I say. Or even domestic violence. Domestic violence frequently is not something that requires a policeman. It should have people trained in that sort of a
So
area.
what influence? And I'm sorry, I'm not too versed on how politics works in this area, but what does the district attorney have power over this police effort? You know, what influence does the DA would have over how people are being policed?
And that's a great question. Most people are not aware of this, but the position of district attorney is one of the most powerful, in fact, perhaps the most powerful position in a community like ours, in a parish like ours, or in counties in other parts of the country, because it's that person who he filters or she filters out whatever the law enforcement people decide, well, this was a crime, I'm going to write a paper here and investigate a report, but it's the DA who decides whether, yeah, I think that is a crime. I think the elements are there, but the DA could say no, or the DA can say, yeah, I understand that that's a crime, but I'm not going to waste our time prosecuting that. I'm not going to prosecute that. So the DA acts as a filter. And then, once that happens, the DA is the one who controls whether the individual, the defendant, goes to prison, goes to jail while awaiting trial. Of course, the judges have some input on that, and I would hope to work with the judges. We don't need 1,000 people waiting in jail doing nothing. They need to be at home, watching the kids, working, doing whatever their families need them to do. And another thing I would do would be get rid of bail bondsmen.
So that's one thing I read throughout your website is you were encouraging getting rid of that system.
Yes.
Have you thought of the impact it would put on a lot of of businesses here in Louisiana? Because there's thousands of bail bonds out there. That would impact a big industry as well, right?
I don't really know. I will be honest with you. I don't know, nor really do I care, because they are not going to be making money off the backs of these poor people in the community who have not even been found guilty of anything. And many of them are not guilty of anything. And yet they have to sit in jail because they don't have 100 or 500 or whatever amount, the bail bondsman. No, I don't care if they all lose their jobs. I really don't care about that. We need those people back at home with their children. We need them at their jobs.
Well, what do you think is the core of the crime rate in Louisiana specifically, or specifically in Caddo? What is the core of, crimes being committed? Not just committed, but we have the highest reincarceration rate, not just the highest incarceration,
recidivism.
But yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So what is the root of that? Do you believe?
It's because nobody has thought of making any changes since back in the 1960s and the 1970s. Nothing has changed here. When I moved here, I'd already lived all over the country, different parts of Alaska and Massachusetts and New York, and they're not all sticking it. This is a book that I was given last year when I first announced that I was going to run. It was given to me by General Russell Honore, and the name of it is "Don't Get Stuck on Stupid." And he told me, Pat Gilley, read this book, and then you'll understand what I'm saying. That's why they had so much trouble with Katrina, because they just kept doing the same thing they'd been doing. That's what's happened here. We're stuck on stupid. The way that things are being done in Caddo Parish are the way they were done in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. The fact is, since the year 2000, crime has been going down. The rate of crime has been going down across our whole country. Now, this is something that, politically, they don't want you to believe that, but that's a fact. They want to blame the 1994 Criminal Act, and Vice President Biden was in involved with. That is not the problem for all the incarceration and all of the problems they want to talk about. It was actually all of the drugs and the problems that we had in the 80s and 90s and the extreme sentences that people were getting back then. We still have people in jail now who were sentenced back in the 80s and 90s. That's what's wrong. The incarceration is going on and on and on. That is another reason why one of my platforms, one of the planks in my platform is to reconsider people who have been sentenced to a sentence, a very lengthy sentence, and to look through those sentences and make sure, were they correct in the first place? Was the prosecutor biased? Were the defense lawyers in these cases given all of the evidence? Were the constitutional rights of all of those people met? And that's another problem. The incarceration goes to a great extent based on the length of time people got in the first place. I would be re-looking at those things. It's called, reinvestigating those.
Reinvestigating, yeah.
To see who needs to be brought back and say, no, we're cutting that right now. Or finding that that was indeed an innocent person who did not get the evidence they should have been given when they were at trial. And look how many of those, I think 11% of the people on death row have been found to be innocent. So those are just, some of the things that are important if we want to get our system up into the 21st century.
Right. And yes, ma'am, I think that is something that needs to be done, is rethinking the way we're doing things, because there's obviously a problem in the system at the moment. Especially if, they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result, right? So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely something to be looked at there. Now, speaking of incarceration, I did see while looking for your information on your stuff that there was a recent incarceration on you for 2 hours. Can you tell us? Can you tell us what happened there? Because I mean, there's been plenty of activists and politicians that have been incarcerated at some point. I think Bernie was incarcerated for a couple times for disturbing the peace or stuff like that. So, can you tell us about yours? What happened there?
I would be glad to tell you, because this is the very system, the kind of system that I'm talking about. It happened in Bossier Parish, and Bossier Parish, as you may or may not know, there's not a single judge in that district that's being challenged for this position. No one's, or the district attorney.
Bossier and Webster Parish share judges, don't they?
They do. They do. But nobody has chosen to run against them. So what happens when you have that kind of an authoritarian system, which we almost have here, thank goodness there are some of us that, But what happened is that case was a murder case that I had been working on for 3 years, and I had been filing motions and discovery and filing all sorts of things that never got any response from the DA. But what I did learn from the DA is that the DA had been threatening the chief witness in that case, that if she didn't change her story from what she had told from the very first hour after the incident happened, that she would go to Angola with my client, who I was representing, whom she hired me to represent. She hired me because she believed what was so wrong, that he was put in jail and the father of this child was not. So I said, you have threatened her, and that is corruption. You have interfered in the system. And that was ignored. And then we got to the point of trial, and we were at the date of trial, and the judge was getting very irritated because my client wouldn't take the plea. He said, why are we wasting all this people out there waiting to be jurors? And I said, the judge, there's no incentive for my client, because if he goes to trial, which we think he has a very strong defense, he will have no sentence. If he loses, he will have a life sentence, a life sentence. If he takes this plea offer, the mandatory, the top is 40 years. To my 21-year-old client, 40 years in life doesn't make much difference. And so the judge back behind the courtroom said, Miss Gilley, you have my word that if your client takes this plea offer of manslaughter, I will promise you, you have my word, I will not give him more than 20 years in jail. And so I said, well, let me go tell him that. So I went back to the courtroom and I said, this is what the judge said. And my client said, well, first of all, he's the fourth judge we have. How do we know he'll even be the one that will sentence me? And second, do you trust this judge? How do you know him? And I said, well, all I can say is he's never told me anything that wasn't true, but I don't have that many cases in history with him. So I went back to behind the courtroom and said, Judge, here's the thing. My client is concerned. How do we know you will be the one? He said, I will assure you I will be the one who will sentence your client. And I said, well, his next concern is, well, how do I know that you are a man of your word? And the judge leaned over and he said, Miss Gilley, I am giving you my word. I will not give your client more than 20 years if he pleads guilty today to manslaughter. Mm-hmm. And I will let you have a hearing and you can present mitigating evidence. So I went back, told my client, he took the plea. 2 months later, 3 months, we do our sentencing, and he got 35 years. So I said to the judge, quickly before he left the courtroom, Judge, wait just a minute. You forgot your word that you said. And he said, oh, no, I would never have said that. I don't know where you got that idea, Miss Gilley. I would never have said that. And so, what push comes to shove, and I filed a motion for a hearing to say this sentence needs to be reconsidered because of these facts. And I had, I think, 30, 40 pages with evidence and transcripts. And I said, I would like to have a hearing. And I was told, no, you will not have a hearing. Go for appeal. So I went for an appeal. And so while the appeal is progressing, the district attorney over there, Skylar Marvin, filed a motion to hold me in contempt of court for what I said in that pleading. Now, I wanted a hearing on that pleading, and I was denied when I had the witnesses there who could have told the truth, and I was denied a hearing. But now, in the very last month of my campaign for DA, and remember, Caddo Parish DA James Stewart, his first person on his list of supporters is Skylar Marvin, the DA of Bossier Parish. So they had me brought into court and said, tell us why we shouldn't hold you in contempt. And basically I said, well, you should not hold me in contempt because everything that I said was true. Right. And I'm not going to recant it. It was true then, it's true now, and it always will be true. And so the judge said, well, if that's your position, I find you in contempt of court because what you said was disturbing, disgusting, abusive. He used different words, but never could really tell me what statute I had violated. Never said it's not true. That's slander, that's libel. Never said that. Just said those were not nice words. You should have been a better wordsmith and used nicer words, basically. And I said, I could do two things, Miss Gilley. I can charge you $100 or I can order you for 24 hours in jail. And I said, well, I'm busy. I have to put my money in a campaign and I don't have any $100 to pay for this, so tell the bailiff please to take me to jail. And that's what happened. So what I have found over the weeks since then is that people, if they read the whole story, are appalled that a seasoned trial lawyer, grandma, who's always had some of the highest compliments in the community, would be charged with being in contempt of court.
How long ago was that?
This just happened August the 30th, I believe it was.
Okay. Yeah, I believe were you at the time already running for the position?
Oh, yeah, it was in the last month or 6 weeks of the campaign. Okay. Absolutely.
I was just thinking that maybe that's why it resurfaced, but yeah, if it's recent.
Oh, no, it was all going on. Not only that, but one of the other lawyers in that same case has filed disciplinary charges against me in the Louisiana Disciplinary Board, I just found out yesterday, has the district attorney, Skylar Marvin, filed things against me with the disciplinary board. So it hasn't slowed down. So
that's one of those things people say is that absolute power corrupts absolutely. And when you have power, for a lengthy amount of time, especially when you're, uncontended, nobody's running against you, well, then what incentive do you have to keep yourself, true to those promises?
Well, it doesn't, and I even mentioned in my argument, I said, how can you stand here and argue like this, Mr. Marvin, when you're the one who gives state property, a car to someone of your lawyer friends that he has no right to be driving a district attorney vehicle, and he drives it and puts it in a lake and is totaled and doesn't report it. And then later on, he's found out that he was the one who drove the district attorney's vehicle into the lake, and nothing ever happens. That's either theft or abuse of malfeasance in office if you're letting people just take your DA property and use it in the evenings or late of the night. That multiple other instances. We see it. We saw it in the Second Circuit Court of Appeal. Judge Henry Brown and his law clerk, Trina Chu, cracking into the computers of 3 other judges who were doing cases involving the judge's girlfriend. Nothing happened. He retired at full pay. We're paying for him for the rest of his life. Nothing happened to him. We have the city court judge in Shreveport who's having sex with one of the defendants he's going to be ruling on in court later in the day. His old girlfriend comes in, there's a gunshot, she's shot. I don't know that we ever did figure out how she got shot. Nothing ever happened to him. He did resign from his, retire, I guess, also. I mean, things just don't seem to happen to people that are elected officials around here. They just get brushed under the rug, and we keep paying for them to keep getting their nice big checks. And nobody ever challenges it. And I know when I challenge things, I have a case right now that's going to go to appeal against in the Caddo District Court. 3 of the judges over there recused themselves, refused to take the case that I was representing, Eric Hatfield, and it was a case where they had been defaming him and his family and saying awful things about him, totally unrelated to, in my opinion, what was going on in his little job as a constable out there.
Right.
And so finally we got the same judge that had always ruled in favor of certain lawyers that go over there all the time in his courtroom, because the other 3 no one would take the case. So we lost. We knew we would. And now we're going to go on appeal again. I asked another one of the judges who, when I asked to recuse the trial judge, and I said, Judge, I don't understand it. We all know that this is not fair what's going on in this judge's courtroom, that this certain lawyer is getting favored all the time. And I said, I say it, everybody says it, and then when I come and bring it step forward and I look around for support, nobody's ever there.
Right.
And the judge said, yeah, well, I understand exactly what you're saying. As a group, lawyers are among the most spineless people. Now that's wrong.
It absolutely is. I mean, I truly believe so. I've had chats with, quite a few people who are running for politics just this year. And there is obviously something wrong with our system, and I would definitely like to help put the people in place that would fix that. But again, one of my questions to one of these people who's running to be a judge was, how do I keep you accountable? How do I keep you accountable knowing that you're about to have one of those positions where you're going to have quite a bit of power? You're going to be in charge of putting people away for very long times or letting them go. How do you keep yourself fair and equal when it comes to handing out these punishments? How do you keep yourself accountable is basically what my question is. And how would you keep yourself accountable?
One of the things that I think is important, and many states have already figured this out, is that you don't let lawyers donate money to the campaign of people who are running for judge. I mean, you look at it. You look at the people who are supporting the campaigns for these folks. Most of them are lawyers.
Right.
I mean, it just doesn't look good. And I know, as a stranger coming in, someone who's only been here 34 years, I'm an outsider, and we always will be. We are not from here. And I never got any favors, and I never asked for any favors. All I want is a level playing field. But it's not level because there are too many favored folks here. You get thousands of dollars from somebody, and you have 2 cases, and they're kind of pretty much even Steven. Who's going to get the nod? It's really hard to put that out of your mind. I don't say that there are, it's really hard to be a judge. I've never wanted to be a judge. I've always been designed to be an advocate. And I enjoy it. It's what I think is important for me. That's the way I'm wired. But I can say that it's really a shame And, not just criminal cases, but family law cases, civil cases, civil rights cases, employment law cases. When you get people that their whole careers have been working for insurance companies, as some of the judges that we have here, they have no idea what the people on the street, what their problems are, what their lives are. They don't even, I remember the first 9 months when I worked here in town after being moving here and trying to get back into the law practice. I never saw a client because all the clients are insurance companies. I mean, I said, I can't do this. I don't have the heart for this. I want to work for people. And not for some insurance company that's going to bleed the people dry. You pay your premiums for years, and then something happens, and then they got to figure out how you don't get paid. I mean, but if those are the kind of people that are going to be the judges, what experience do they have? So, what kind of law practice did you have? Just because you tried lots of cases in which the plaintiffs mostly lose, excuse me.
Right.
I have a problem with that.
Right. So,
something that you haven't touched on that I really would like to say is important.
Yes, please.
It's the very first thing on my platform is that this is the number one problem that I face here, if I get to be the DA, is the violent crime, the shooting, the kids, the young black people, boys mainly, that are getting killed. And I think that is the first and foremost thing that has to be focused on. And I want to tell the folks out there, this is the book that I spent several months working on, digesting it, reading it, taking, the footnotes in the back of the book are pages and pages, because these are real facts of cities that have made a difference with the violent crime, bleeding out the devastating consequences of urban violence and a bold new plan for peace in the streets. And that's what I want to try and put into play. Peace in the streets. And how are you going to do it? It's not going to be by the U.S. attorney standing up there with the sheriff and the chief of police and the DA saying, yes, we're going to get these people and we're going to fill up these jails and we're going to cure this problem. We've been trying to do that since the 1980s, and that did not work. So here's what you do. You don't just throw more cops out into Cedar Grove or Moortown or Ellendale or Cooper Road. What you do is, as the DA, I would want to meet with the chief and the sheriff and say, okay, get your data people together. I want to know all the facts that people have found in the last 4 or 5 years is that there are certain areas, certain intersections in these communities where all the violence is. What you do is you get that on your map, and you go and you have a call in. All the folks in that area. I'll be there. Hopefully the police chiefs will be there. And the mothers of the boys who were killed, who are dead and buried, they will be there. And church people will be there. And social workers will be there. And hopefully some criminologists will be there. And we're going to say, you know what? We're going to try something new, because we are going to make this violence end. Now, there are 2 ways that you can go. If you have a problem, we're going to help you. I am going to help you. I'm not going to come send the cops in here and there every time they see you with a bag of marijuana or something. Don't waste my time. You can smoke your marijuana. I'm going to keep track of truancies and other stuff. We might have you in some programs, but you're not going to be criminalized for that. So we're not going to criminalize you for that. What else would you like to get? You need a driver's license? We can help you get that. Do you need some kind of medical care? We can help you. Are you being abused at home? Are you starving for food at home? We can help you get those things. But then you're going to help us. You are not going to be part of these gangs. So if you want help, if you need help in school, if we need to get you transportation, if you need to get a job, or your dad or your mom, someone, we can help you. We've got people who are signed on to help. And you will not be criminalized. But if you don't, I'm going to come at you with everything I can. And you will be arrested. And we will now have time to focus on your cases, you folks that don't want to play right. And we will get the evidence to convict you, and you will go to jail for a long time. So it's not just flood the neighborhoods with cops and scoop up everybody. No, we're going to focus. Focused deterrence is the term that's used, not just community violence.
Right.
Focused deterrence. And I would love to have the opportunity to try that.
And I want to thank you. I want to thank you for actually having a plan, for actually, telling me what you're going to do, because every time I interview somebody who is doing politics in some degree, I always get the most generic answers. And it's sad to see that. It's just...
It's heartbreaking, Mr. Garcia.
It absolutely is. But I like that you actually have a plan. I like that you can tell me where you've gotten those ideas from. I like that you can tell me all that. So, again, I cannot in any way endorse any politician or anything like that, but I do want to say that I like what you have to say.
I thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to say it, because with the coronavirus, it has been so difficult to get my message out. I'm a people person. I would have been walking all over every time now when I'm out there, I'm driving my car and I see 4 or 5 or 6 people standing out there, guys, women, mostly guys, black, white, doesn't matter. I go out, I park, put my mask on, and I give them my cards and I say, look, I want to talk to you about this. People are ready for change, and
Yes, ma'am.
I am ready to help them do it. So thank you so much. I appreciate you giving me the time, and I just thank you so much. If anybody wants to send me a message, go to my website. It's www.patgilley4caddo.com. And you can read all about the details. You can also send me a message. It's private to me. No one else will read it. Suggestions, ideas, comments, I would be very thrilled to have them.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Before we go, I would like to say Ms. Rosalva Quiroz sends her regards.
Oh,
She'd like to thank you for all that you've done for the Latino community as well. She's been telling me a little bit about it as well, so thank you for that as well.
we are dear friends.
We are almost out of time. Are there any last words you would like to say?
Just everybody, please get out to vote. Help others who might have a problem voting. Help them get out there. We have to be vocal. We have to get out there. We cannot just be complacent or apathetic any longer. We have to speak up. So please stay safe. Wear your masks. As soon as I get up from here, I'm going to put mine back on. Stay safe, and God bless.
Thank you so much, Ms. Pat. Ladies and gentlemen, for 318 Latino, I'm Brian Garcia. Today in an interview with Ms. Pat Gilley for Caddo District Attorney number 87 on your ballot. You have a wonderful day, wonderful weekend. Thank you so much for watching.
Man, I wish I could do this every week. Mr. Garcia.